Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton, and today we're doing the deck tech that nobody asked for, a Hololive Council/Promise Gen specific list. This is a list I've been very excited about making for a while, mostly because I finally get to play my Oshi. The last time we did an English Gen specific list on the channel, we built Caligura, which ended up being the best deck in the meta. Will that happen again? I doubt it. But we're going to see what we can do with these new Promise cards from the Summer Collection set. This is not going to be an expensive list to put together. The Summer Collection stuff is mostly very cheap, and it's falling fast. Came out about a week ago as of recording, and should continue to fall for at least a little bit before it probably stabilizes as more product gets opened as people chase those SPs. I wouldn't think you'd spend more than like $40 on this list. It would depend on which drop searcher PRs you went for. We'll get to that in a minute. Competitively, this deck is probably D tier in the current meta. The Mumei package with the level 1 and level 3 combo on the same CX is quite good. That will get paired with other better stuff. Like, you're going to see Kanata, you're going to see Suisei, you're going to see some standby stuff. Like, there's a lot you can do with the Mumei package, and you'll see that running around in fall. Some of it might end up actually being quite good and potentially meta relevant. 8 Pants with Rushia also makes a ton of sense. A lot of good things you can do with the Mumei. This is not the best thing for meta purposes that you can do with it, but it does allow us to play the rest of the fun council package without having to kind of give up on having either a level 1 or level 3 combo. We can play the extra level 0 combo, which is what I think makes the deck fun. But this is not a competitive list with the Fauna package, specifically with the Mumei. We play it because Promise is a fun gen. Also, we have a burn 5 top end. I've been really excited to finally get to play Fauna cards. The level 0 combo was not strong enough to be its own plussing engine before, but now that we can play the Mumei package, it allows us to play the Fauna stuff, and the Fauna stuff with additional cards is actually pretty decent. Also, the top end has a burn 5. Looping level 0 on bar is really cool. You just get to slam CX every single turn because you're triggering more often than not. So you get to slam Pants and bar all game long and just get to continue to push damage and generate resources. And you also get to work to a burn 5 to close the game. I'm mostly just happy to play my favorite Kirin. Let's get into it, and we will start with that Kirin. Level 0 Fauna combo. We've seen this before, but not really talked about it much because it's one of the weaker combos on its own in a very strong Hololive title. It combos with bar, all your other characters get 500, so it's a global 5 that sits in the back row the whole game, offense and defense. At the beginning of your encore step, sack the bar, look it up to 4, add an event or character. We don't have any events in this list, but the bar does replace itself in our hand, so we go net 0 on hand and just get to push additional damage. We also get to mill 4, so we get to trigger bars the whole game and then just keep slamming them over and over again and just pushing damage without losing the card from hand. It's very nice. The other key back row piece is the Iris Brainstormer. This card is actually really fun in the Caligura list. I don't think a lot of people run it, but I run a couple copies because I think that the additional power it gives is quite useful. Whenever you trigger a soul icon, give 1,000 power to something. It's also a salvage Brainstormer. Also the only Hololive EN Brainstormer, so we were going to play her no matter what, but the additional power is nice, even if we only run about half the soul triggers that we run in the Myth list. The other 4 of 0 we run is the Crony Oversize. On your turn, it's a 3/5 level 1, and when attacked, it's a JC, which is pay 1, sack this when your other character is frontal attacked to bounce that character back to your own hand. This allows us to, on turns 1 and 2, push forward the back row combo piece or the Brainstormer if we want to have the extra attack. Get that extra attack, and then get that card back into our hand so that we don't lose it from our back row. Useful stuff at the beginning of the game. Pay 1+ is always just nice. It allows us to continue to attack, because this is a damage list. As much as it doesn't necessarily look like one, it is a damage list because we're slamming CXs over and over again. So getting cards back into our hand, making sure that we can generate 3 attacks per turn starting from turn 1 is ideal. Next, we get into some tech at 0. The Bay is actually pretty meta-relevant. You'll see it in a lot of lists. I run a copy of it in my Caligura, meta Hololive list. Pay 1, pitch 1 on play or on death to look it up to 3, add 1. We run 2 copies of it here. It's usually used to dig for CX. We're not using it to dig for CX as much here because we have 8 CX plussing triggers. But it is useful to get us, out of a hand where maybe we have too many CXs in hand, go get us a character, get us a playable. It's also a little bit of mill and a little bit of dig. Pays out some CXs. We don't have a ton of fixing options in the Promise stuff, so we need to use what we can get. This is pretty solid. We'll take it. The next good fixing piece is the Crony level 0. This is a CX ditch salvage, which again, we run pants and bar. We're going to have CXs in hand. Being able to ditch with this is nice. But the other ability that this card has that I think makes it stand out is at the beginning of your main phase, if it's in your clock, you can choose a blue card in your hand and swap it with this card in your clock to get this into your hand. Fun play is to clock it, draw 2. If you draw a CX, immediately swap this thing back into your hand, play it, ditch the CX, go get something else. Suddenly you have multiple playables, you got the extra CX out of your hand, and you also got to clock something that really only has good utility if you draw the extra CX, which you don't really want to draw. So it's kind of a way to get out of a bad hand situation early in the game, but you do so without having to clock something that you might actually like and, drawing something that you may not want. So it gives you that kind of flexibility. It's a 2 of here. I run it as a 1 of in my meta Hololive list, because when you're running pants triggers, sometimes you have too many CXs in hand. This just gets rid of them. It's immediate, very cheap fix. Next, we have the Sauna Drop Searcher. We got 3 copies of this. I would almost never run 3 copies of a Drop Searcher in any list. I run it here because we need the direct fixing. We don't have a Ricky. We don't have any other selective fixing in hand other than the CX ditch. So if we whiff a Brainstormer or don't have the extra CX for the ditch, we don't necessarily fix super well for our level 1 game. 3 is a lot. I could totally see cutting this to 2 or even 1 if you feel like you can find the rest of the fixing to make it work. I have no real issues with being a little bit greedy and running a little bit of a less efficient level 0 package featuring more drop search. We also don't have deck access. We mostly have waiting room access. So I run it as a 3 of just to make sure that I have my level 1 stuff. Also, this is the Sana PR. Sana, former member of council, since graduated. Promise has since kind of been a reorganization of the 4 remaining members of council, plus adding Iris, who didn't have a gen home before. Wanted some Sana representation in the deck, but Sana's cards, she has 3 of them, and they're all really bad other than this Drop Searcher. So I've got the Sana PR Drop Searcher in here as a way to represent Sana in the list. If it's in the middle position of your center stage, it's a 3/5, which is perfectly fine for size. It's an oversize that helps. Another reason I don't feel bad playing 3 of it is that it just does sit at 3/5, which is not the easiest number to kill if it's sitting in your middle position of your center stage. So it can serve as a plussing 0 in addition to the drop search. This is also going to be the most expensive card in the deck. The Fauna Drop Searcher, for example, is about a $6 promo, whereas the Bay is a $2 promo. Run whichever one you want, whichever one you can afford, or whichever character you want to see in the deck. Let's get into this level 1 package. We'll start with a level 1 combo, Mumei on Pants. On attack, if you have another Hololive character, it gains 15, so it'll swing at 7/7/5 if you have the Fauna in the back row, which you should just the whole game. On attack, look at the top card of your deck, add it to hand if it's a character, and then salvage ditch. So ideally, it is +1 with perfect fixing from grave. If it's a climax, obviously you don't get the plus off of the combo, but you do get the plus off of the trigger. So you're going to have 3 cards from this combo if you triple it, no matter what. So at least it's consistent hand. It's not an amazing level 1 combo, but again, the reason we play this is not just for the level 1 combo, but also for the level 3 that's on the same CX. Next card, part of the Fauna package, it is the Summer Splash Fauna. If you have the level 0 combo in your back row, this just gains 4k, so it's 7, because the Fauna back row also just gives 500, so it'll sit at 7 all the time. On attack, pay 1 Twin Drive. We're going to trigger a lot of bars in this list. Pay out the blind stock, or dig for bar triggers so that you can keep looping, dig for pants triggers. This is a useful piece, and it's gonna, like I said, sit at 7. The size is fine for level 1. A lot of stuff can just get over it, but there's enough stuff that can't get over it, and it will also usually clear whatever's in front of it, in addition to that twin drive. Summer Splash Iris is a 1/1. If you have the Brainstormer in your back row, this gains 1500 and Hand Encore, so it's 7/5 all the time if you have both of the back row cards in play. On attack, if you have 2 or more characters, look it up to 2, choose a card, put it on top, mill the rest, and this card gets 2k. So it's going to be a 9/5 striker as a 1/1 with Hand Encore, and you also get to fix your trigger. So between this and the Fauna, you have excellent trigger fixing, useful piece, good striker profile. It's a little bit smaller than the ones you'll see at level 2, but 9/5 is a pretty good size for it. Next, if you want a Summer Splash Crony on play, choose a card in your clock, add to hand. If you do, take something from your hand and put it into your clock, so very similar to the clock shift ability on the level 0. This is just useful fixing. It's in here as a 1/of mostly for the fix. But on attack, if you have another Hololive character, it gets 3k, so we'll swing at 5/5, 6 at the back row. That is fine. Again, we're also trying to slam CXs every time we can, so if we slam a pants or a bar, this and all of our other level 1 stuff will go up by an additional 1000. Next 1/of is the Fauna from the first Hololive Premium set. On play, ditch a card to summon a level 0 2 board from Waiting Room. This is mostly here if we just completely whiff on getting our Brainstormer or our level 0 combo out. It essentially serves as a 5th copy of each. As long as we have one in grave, we can just go get it and put it on the board so that we have the power condition for our other stuff, and also our combo and our Brainstorm. It's just in here as a 1/of for that reason. We're not usually going to need this, but if you have this, it essentially, like I said, serves as a 5th copy of both of those cards. And then finally at 1, the Mumei from that premium set. On play, Memory Dump. If anyone has 5 or more cards in their memory, they go down to 4 cards in memory and the rest go into Waiting Room. Not a super useful ability, frankly. There are very few lists that have that much memory at this point in the meta, but it is a piece of tech that is there. It's also its own striker. When your other Hololive character attacks, this gains 2k until end of turn. So it'll swing at 8 if you swing with it last, 8/5 with back row, 9/5 with CX. So it's a free level 1 kind of striker type ability and offers a little bit of blue fix as well. Next, the only level 2 card. This one I think is a little more useful than people think it is. On play, this Iris gets X until end of turn, X equal to the number of Hololive characters you have times 1000. That includes this card, so it just goes up to 12 on play. It, again, gets power from the back row up to 12/5. When this becomes reversed, if there's a climax in your climax area, you can choose a card in your Waiting Room and stock it. So if you slam the bar, you get the level 0 combo from the back row. This goes up to 13/5, and when it gets a reverse on whatever big thing you're trying to clear with it, you get to stock a card to replace what you paid for it. It's real solid. This is a card that you're looking to get down at 2 as a way to clear board. I could totally see this as a 3/of if you're running into big stuff that you're struggling to clear. This gets over Mirren. This forces backup on Mirren. This forces backup on standby targets. And even just forcing the backup is usually worth it because of the resources your opponents have to use to get this off the board. And the possibility that you can get it for free in addition to all that just makes it a really solid piece for this list. Finally, let's talk level 3, Mumei Splash Party combo. Same CX as the level 1. It gets 500 for each of your other Hololive characters, so it'll be 12/5 with the back row and the CX down. On play, heal 1 combo. Pay 3, pitch 2, and sack the CX when this gets a reverse. If you do, fix 3 cards from your opponent's Waiting Room to the top of your opponent's deck, and burn 5. You're paying a lot. It's pay 3, pitch 2, burn 5, but you get the 3. So you essentially get the reward for burning 5 when you only actually need 2 to stick, but you only get to do it once. You do have to sack the CX for it, which is why we run an off finisher in the Bay from Summer Splash Party. Another on play heal. On attack, pay 2, pitch 2, burn 2. Not super efficient, but it is a promise off finisher that is useful. We can also just use this instead of the Mumei if we need maybe more precise finishing. Maybe we don't need the burn 5. It gives us more options at the top if we want them, in addition to being an off finisher for a 1-lane combo. Again, this is Promise. Our card pool is pretty limited. This is the only real off finisher that the set offers us for this gen. But ideally, I think the board is 1 Mumei, 1 Bay, and 1 of this Iris. If your opponent has a level 3 or higher character, this becomes an early play. During the turn that this was placed on stage, when it attacks, everybody on your side of the board gets 2,500 power, and on reverse, clock shoot. So your opponent heals 1, and whatever's on the board gets shot into clock to replace it. It's a good way to get rid of sticky things, but more importantly, I think for our purposes, it gets 2,500 power to the Mumei, allowing it to clear what it needs to clear to make sure it gets its reverse. Because now you're looking at a 15k body getting, a swing even over any level 3 that should clear it. There will be a lane that you can clear with the Mumei for sure to make sure you get your burn 5. That's probably the most important part of the Iris, but the ability to also just get stuff off the board, especially if you pair this with the level 2 Iris, especially if your opponent gets like an early play down or something, you can play this Iris early, give the power to your Iris strikers, and all of a sudden your Irises are even bigger than they already were. You're looking at, if you slam a CX, a 16k Iris 2-1 that can get over pretty much anything, and this Iris will allow you to use those other Irises to not only clear the board, but get them shoved into your opponent's clock, where it becomes much more difficult for them to get them out and back onto the board. So some good plays here you can make with the Iris stuff at levels 2 and 3. This was a PR, it's not hard to find. It was a little bit hard to find for a minute, but now they're everywhere. It's very easy to pick these up. If your locals is doing like a gen-specific Hololive night, or something thematic, or if you just want to have the deck just to play for fun, it's very cheap to pick up. It's fun to play. I really like having EN gen-specific stuff. Like, Advent and Justice are eventually going to get cards, I imagine, assuming that Bushiroad continues to get Hololive cards printed in Weiss. And as soon as the Advent cards get printed in this game, I will be Bibu taxing the heck out of my locals. But yeah, that's all for this. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back on Tuesday for our first All of the Decks video of the season. We're talking about the meta stuff, all the best decks. This deck will not be there, but there will definitely be some Hololive in the conversation. Braden will be joining Brandon and I for that conversation. It's going to be a really good video. That will come out on Tuesday, and we should be back to our regular twice-a-week video schedule starting next week. Maybe we'll get some gameplay up for this, who knows. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.